Well, hey everybody. Well, there goes my throat already. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for Monday, the 6th of September, 2021. Well, it's Labor Day, so happy Labor Day. It is completely smoky outside again. We have not had any reprieve from this in days, and so it's not as, while it was not as bad as what we went through last year, it's bad enough. So anyway, I did a post over on Medium, just on Medium, about respiratory herbs and a little tea that I've been using. Um, doesn't have many ingredients, and I think just what 4 or 5 or something. But anyway, um, so you can check that out over there on my Medium page if you want to. There's a link to that below the video. Well, to the Medium page anyway, and check that out if you're interested in that. Um, but other than that, we've stayed inside as much as we can. And if we do have to go out, I mean, we have to wear masks. And I've been um, wearing goggles as well to keep my eyes protected. My husband, unfortunately, has been out more than I have, doing the watering and stuff, but and taking care of the chickens and things. But um, it's awful outside. And what's outside is inside. So, and although we try to do the best we can to deal with any smoke that comes in, it seeps in anyway. We've had to cover the entrance to the back porch with a sheet, but it's not, it's not like we haven't taped a piece of, plastic or something over it. So, it's still going to come in. Every time the heat pump comes on for the air conditioning to come on, then it will draw some in, So it's not a it's just the way it is, and hopefully it won't be this way too much longer. But there's an awful lot of fires burning around here, so I don't know what that's about, but it needs to stop. When your weather app says yes, it's not safe to go outside. Well, then it's not safe to go outside. And it isn't right now. We wake up in the morning and we look to the top of our pasture, and the juniper trees that are up there, you can't even see them for all the smoke. So that's what we're dealing with here today. Well, let's take a look at the Elder Futhark rune we have on this holiday that isn't. We have Alyes. Alyes is the Bifrost bridge between physical and astral realms. It represents higher consciousness. It's also the elk and the elk sedge and protection. So drawing down spirit into your awareness today. And that seems to be a running theme on this week's esoteric and magical influences. So if you want to check that out, there's a video and a post. So check that out and you'll see. Let's see what the geomancy rune is. Oh, this is an easy one. Via, or new path, or way, or journey. Its complement is populous. That would be 2 dots all the way down. Fire, air, water, and earth. That's what it's arranged in. And that would be going along with the flow. More of a passive influence. Via is an active influence. So actively taking a new path here today that invokes spirit into whatever you're doing, I guess. Well, we can start there. Let me move my tea out of the way, my phone out of the way. Well, you know how it goes. Let's just shuffle a couple more times. If this is your first time here, welcome. I appreciate you stopping by on this holiday. I do this on Mondays and Thursdays for the tarot and rune reading, and it gives people a chance to kind of think about it for a few days. Typically, the two readings link together. Once in a while, though, they don't. So it's kind of like giving information for the whole week, but giving you a chance to think about stuff before the next reading. And and either watch for something that could be happening, or incorporating certain things into your awareness or your life or whatever. I also do correspondences for Work and Magic Monday through Friday here on YouTube. It's a short one. It goes, mostly it's for the Patreon page, but I also publish it around. And then over there on the Patreon page is where you find all the longer interpretation of the recommendations. So anyway, so there's that. Let's see what else. Oh, the forecast, the bigger one, goes up over on Stepping Aside, which is my blog over there at imsteppingaside.com. It goes up Monday through Friday, and that's the longer astrological forecasts and esoteric forecasts. So if you want all of it, it's right there. Well, I have to leave some things for my blog, so anyway, which is where it all started. Everything did. So let's take a look at our first 3 cards, and then we'll pull a card that challenges us, and then one that benefits us. So 5 cards total. So initially we have the 5 of Swords. And I don't actually care for this card. It's one of the cards that I have a visceral reaction to. It's like, oh, okay. Taking advantage of the situation. The Wheel of Fortune. 10th card of the Major Arcana. A 1, Energy of New Beginnings, the turning of the wheel. So we have a major influence today. Anytime you see a major card from the Major Arcana, to me, you're looking at a soul archetype card. And so it's soul coming in and saying, or higher self coming in and say, hey, pay attention, Wheel of Fortune it's about fortune and prosperity and success, but it's also about the cyclical nature of things. And so, 1 minute you might be doing well, and the next minute you might not be, but it's just the cycles of life, really. Well, we have a second card from the Major Arcana, the Hanged Man. Card 12, a 3 energy, mind, body, spirit balance, for sure in this representation. Creativity, alignment with others, really. If you think like the 3 of Cups, they're all celebrating and dancing together, the 3 women are, at least in the Rider-Waite presentation of the card. If you happen to use a different deck that I'm using, then it might look different. You look at some of the more pagan decks, and like the Wildwood is just completely, or Druidcraft, completely different than this. But it's still going to give you a similar interpretation, although I think it's best, especially with the Wildwood cards, or that particular deck, or maybe and Druidcraft, any of the pagan-oriented decks, you should really take a look at what the authors of the deck have to say about their own interpretations, because it opens you up to some history that you might not have been aware of, and why they are maybe drawing it differently. They just I've been working with that deck. I actually have a reading I'm going to do here, and I'm not sure where I'm going to do it at. Maybe I'll do it on the blog. But I have it ready to go. I haven't written it, but I've gotten it out. I've been looking at it, and I'm using the Wildwood deck in it. So if you want to take a look at that, it'll probably go up on the blog. And you can get an idea of what that deck looks like. It's just gorgeous, and I really, really like it. But in any event, let's take a look at these first cards. So numerologically, we have a 5, a 1, and a 3. So that's an 8 overall numerology for the first initial cards. Now, typically speaking, since I've added 2 extra cards to this reading, it seems like the 3rd card of the general influences seems to be the outcome card, or the strongest effect of all of it. But again, it can just depend on the reading. So, but I think that's typically, so let's watch for that as we go on here and look at this. But we have the 5 of Swords is what we're going to start out with. And we're looking at conquest, loss, defeat. I mean, you can see this guy, he's holding, I'll bring it up here. He's holding his head, basically, or at least here, or maybe he's doing this. I can't really tell. It's pretty small. I don't think I have well, I've got one in here, but it's not my lighted one. So I don't know if I can even see him. Yeah, he might have his hands on his face, but he's turned away. He's turned away from the reader, so it's difficult to tell. But you see the sketchy brown clouds. You also see the water that's choppy behind. It's not smooth. So emotions are still in play here, and people are still upset. You've got this guy here who's looking at this guy. You see the swords. Their swords are on the ground. You see this other guy who's all too a little bit more happy than I want to see, right? And his hair kind of is sketchy like the clouds in a way, isn't it? So I don't know if the sketchy brown clouds are moving in or moving out. If they're dissipating, well, then maybe whatever deception that this guy had is working. And now he can move on and do whatever he wants to do with all of it. But this is definitely loss or interference and defeat, with this guy picking up the spoils. So there's been an argument. With swords, you're talking about the air element, and that's communication, it's interaction, it's justice, it's fairness, it's balance, it's all of that, and protection as well. But when you look at the Ace of Swords, or say even the Queen of Swords, you're looking at something that's cutting through illusion. And now we know. Now we know the deception that's taken place. Now we know who's the cause of it, basically. Problem is that the other two people are not looking at him. They're too caught up in their own thing. The one guy's looking at the other one who's bereft by the water. You see the dual line right here? I look upon that as and interpret that as a kind of a line of demarcation between that was then and this is now. But as you can see, the waters are still choppy, so the emotion is still there over what's just happened. And to me, it just doesn't it doesn't feel like it's the right thing that's happened. Okay, it just doesn't feel like this is what should have happened. He didn't win because he was supposed to. Basically, he did it by deceptive means. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that right now, collectively, and maybe even in our personal lives, where people are winning, at least temporarily, due to deceptive means, either through intimidation or lying or just trying to pull a fast one. That's what this card reminds me of. Somebody's pulling a fast one. It's kind of an old expression, but my mother used to use it quite frequently. But yeah, they're just pulling a fast one on you. That's what's going on there, she'd say, you know. So it's like I hear my mother when I see this card. But then we have the Wheel of Fortune. So even though, well, I'm going to wait before I connect the two. Basically, again, we're talking about you see the hermetic glyphs for air, fire, water, and earth. Up here, they're sitting in the clouds. And it's basically asking us to see the higher purpose of cycles in our lives. You know, you could even look at this one as cyclical, maybe, you know, especially with the line of demarcation here and the idea of that was then and this is now. Things are doing this. And same with this card. So I don't necessarily think we should think of it as fortune, but let's wait and see. You see the hermetic glyphs for Mercury, sulfur, and salt surrounding the wheel. You see tarot written on the outside part of it with some Hebrew glyphs in the center of each or I should say in between each letter. You see Aquarius, and I can't tell there if that looks like Mercury. Looks like Aquarius there. Or no, that's Libra. Is that Libra? I wish I had my other magnifying glass. No, that looks like Aquarius. But I don't know. No, they're not astrological. That must be the Mercury, sulfur, and salt, because that's Mercury there. That must be sulfur, and that must be salt. And then I'm not sure. That does look like the glyph for Aquarius, but I can't tell. Not in this light. Well, I'm going to have to research that because I want to know the answer to that. But basically, when you're talking about the Wheel of Fortune, again, you're talking about prosperity, but are we? You know, maybe the prosperity or the fortune is found in understanding what's really happening and understanding the deception that's there. It improves your chances for success if you know what's going on behind the scenes to try to thwart all of that. You can basically level the playing field a little bit, like you do with the Seven of Swords, where someone is taking the armaments away from the king's men, because they don't, or and you can look, and because it's swords, you could think of it as battle plans. And so they're trying to level the playing field to give themselves an advantage that they don't currently have. And in a sense, you know, the Five of Swords is kind of beginning some of that process. You're seeing this, the whole notion of deception at work here. We may want to move this around, but I think that I want to leave the five where it is. That way we know what precipitated everything. So we can leave the wheel where it is, or we could move the Hanged Man in its place. But ideally, your greatest fortune is alignment and spirit. It's transformation, it's change, sacrifice. It's an as above, so below card. Spirit focus, or letting go of control, surrender. We see threes represented: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If we look at Alyi's, the rune, and remember, it looks like this. It looks like we're standing there holding our arms in supplication to Spirit, drawing down its benefit, benefit into our life, its compassion, its higher awareness, its higher vibratory state. Clearly, that's not happening here. Unless it's telling us, it's alerting us to the deception and telling us to protect ourselves from that and be aware. And again, you know, you can look at Vaya as the path or the way or the journey, but it's also alignment, like Isa. And so I have to think that the path is one that's of spirit. And so do we think of the Wheel of Fortune, given the cyclical nature of it, given the transitory nature of it, potentially anyway? I mean, maybe you continually grow wealth. I mean, it's possible. People do that. But even within that, you're going to have ups and downs. And sometimes those ups and downs are caused by somebody else interfering with the process. And so I think that when we're talking then about Alyi's today, maybe we're really talking about drawing protection from spirit, staying aligned on that same path, that same spiritual path with others, reinforced by the Hangman. Let's see what the challenge card is, though. I mean, maybe the overall idea is that there's deception out in the world. There's things that are going to get into your path, and it's best to stay above it all. You know, like employ the 7 numerology, even though we have a 6 today. 6 can mean shared direction, shared path. It can mean compassion and harmony. Clearly, there's no compassion or harmony in the 5 of Swords. You know, but as the wheel turns and we learn to align in spirit and draw that down and draw our protection from there, with Alyi's, staying aligned on that spiritual path, maybe that's the goal here today, or maybe this week. And again, in the esoteric influences, that seems to, for the whole week, that seems to be kind of the running theme. Trying to get above the lower vibrational energies that we're experiencing these days from others that seem to want to fight against anything that's positive. It's all, you know, this grandiose situation where where the only thing that comes out of anyone's mouths are lies, and it's something that is not serving the collective well in any capacity. So whether it's surrounding information about the virus or how to stay safe from it, I mean, we all know how. It's just whether or not people are going to, and whether or not you've got governors in states that are going to be promoting that. And even with that, you know, here in Oregon, we have a governor that is certainly willing to do that, and has, and we're under tighter restrictions right now, as far as I know. Although one grocery store I walked in didn't seem to, although most people were masked, I didn't. There was too many that weren't, and it's like, what happened? Did they lift the restrictions? Well, I don't think so. I didn't hear about that, so maybe I missed it, but I don't think so. But again, it's this whole feeling of working at cross purposes, and in order to achieve something that they benefit from, and yet they don't. What's happening there? Why are they doing things that they will not benefit from? Maybe in that moment they think they're benefiting, but then, you know, someone in their family gets the virus and they die, and suddenly they're speaking out going, oh, I didn't know. Well, yeah, you did. Sure you did. You just made a different choice, and one that wasn't going to serve you well. And I have to wonder, you know, there's a temporariness with this card. Obviously, this is kind of a momentary thing. Even if it was something that was planned in advance, you know, it doesn't mean that the people involved that have lost their swords, essentially, or lost the argument, or lost the verbal battle, or what have you, doesn't mean, or the legal decision maybe, doesn't mean that they won't win in the future. You know, it's not, in other words, it's not a permanent thing. And that's what I think the wheel is telling us, that this is transitory always. And the only thing that isn't transitory is expressed by the hanged man, and that's surrender to spirit. That's constant. Let's take a look at the card that's going to challenge us. I'll take the 13th one for randomness sake. We have another major card. 18th card of the major arcana, the moon. Renewal, with the lobster coming out of the pool. Down there we see the dark and light colored dogs. We see the path that splits them. This is about polarity. It's also about deception. But I think that what we don't want to do is deceive ourselves. And I think that maybe that's what this means today. We're looking at two towers, which is a familiar theme in tarot. There we go. We see that the pathway splits the mountain there as well. Now it could represent a stream. It's not blue. But in a way, it almost looks like it's the path the lobster takes toward renewal and transformation. Lobsters shed their skin, their shell, their outer shell. They shed it. I don't know how often, but they do. And basically that's why it's considered, you know, renewal. And but I think we're talking about renewing the balance that we have, the inner balance that we have. Rebalancing things. The polarity, the masculine and feminine polarity, which can also be looked at energetically as projective versus receptive. And honestly, I think I prefer that, because too often I think people mistake the masculine and feminine polarity for gender. They're like, oh no, I'm not mostly. You know, guys will be like, oh no, I'm not primarily feminine. No. It doesn't mean gender. So you know, it's. I prefer to look at it that way. But when they talk about it, it's masculine and feminine polarity. You could look at this, the light of spirit versus the shadow side of self, finding some balance there, and stop annoying the moon, because the moon doesn't look too happy right now. So So again, when you understand that the cyclical nature of things, you don't get so caught up in the moment that you can't understand that things can change. You get stuck in perception. And that's another thing that the turning of the wheel can imply, is not getting stuck in perception. And since we started the reading with the Five of Swords, swords is perception. And instead take a higher self-focus. So the challenge then would be to not deceive yourself in all of this, and making real things that are really more illusory or passing or temporary. And it doesn't mean that in the moment that you experience it, that it didn't happen, and that you don't have feelings about that, or an attitude about it, or a belief about it. It just means that these things are not necessarily carved in stone, and they're not permanent. And you can, even though, because C5 is also about change. And so even though you can see there's a change in circumstances here, it doesn't mean that it can't change again, right? So no self-deception. And then the benefit of that is that you can heal your mind, you can heal perception. Once you understand that you have control over it, no matter what's happening in your life, no matter how wacky it gets, no matter how crazy it gets, you're still dealing with the fact that how you see it is based on perception. And you cannot let someone else define what that is for you. And in a sense, the guy in the Five of Swords is in a way, because they're not standing their ground, because they've given in, or at least the guy over by closest to the water's given in, for certain there, because he's quite bereft. He's caught up in the emotion of it all. When that happens, the individual in question who supposedly wins way more than they need to. Just because there's a situation at hand that you're having to deal with, you don't have to give up. In other words, you can find another way around it. And I think that that's what it's saying here, that this is not temporary, whether you're talking about, well, I mean, even just the abortion law, which is just insane, that the court refused to strike down. That doesn't mean that there's not another way to do it. And they're looking at different ways now to do just that, to figure out a workaround. And so I think that that's, in a sense, what the Wheel of Fortune is also saying, that you're not simply stuck in one path. You're not simply stuck in one modality. And if you are, you shouldn't be. And so here, once you realize that, once you understand that things are not so temporary, that there can be solutions found, then you can let your mind go to rest. And in a sense, the Four aligns pretty well with the Hangman, I think. The Four of Swords. And no, he's not dead. Even though I tell you, I do my ancestry, and I'm related to royalty, evidently, and you'll see when you're going through and looking at the different information for the different people, there'll be pictures associated that have been uploaded, right? And some of them show their crypts, their stone caskets, and on top you see a depiction of them in stone. And whether it's the queen or the king, or the lord and the lady of the manor, whatever it is, even if it was just like a land baron of some kind, you'll see their caskets sitting above. They're not buried in the ground; they're in the casket. But then they've got this relief of them, or whatever you call it, this depiction of them on top. But here, see, he's got his hands in a prayer position. You see that he's probably in a church. You see the stained glass. That's the implication there. And he's just, you see the three swords above and the one sword below. Four is about structure. It's about foundation. It's about rest. It's letting things come to rest. It can be grounding. But when you're talking about this, you've got the one sword below there that's reflecting the balance. And you've got the three swords above that are reflecting the stillness of mind. So I guess I would say on a personal level for today, in the next few days, if you're dealing with something that's causing you great difficulty, emotionally or intellectually or whatever, if you've got something that's upsetting you, understand that this, as my mother used to say, this too shall pass. And you aren't without resources. Draw your awareness from spirit. Allow the polarity within the shadow side of self to make its peace with spirit. In other words, transmute ego into spirit by giving it no attention at all. And then the benefit's going to be that it's going to heal your perception and heal your mind, and understand that there are answers, there are solutions. It may take a bit to get them going, but at the same time, it's not like you're without any solutions at all, even if you think you are, like the guy is here by the water. He likely believes, yeah, there's just nothing I can do and everything is gone and all is lost. Well, no, not necessarily. Not if you align in spirit and allow that awareness to come in. You see people that are say imprisoned, spiritual leaders, when a priest is imprisoned for something that is political. Maybe they have a powerful voice, and somebody comes in, and there's a coup, and they have to get rid of the people that are exerting a positive influence over people. They want to have their own harsh influence be what keeps everybody under control. So they have to get rid of people, right? They have to either kill them or imprison them or whatever. And you'll see a spiritual leader that is imprisoned. Well, I mean, the Dalai Lama, in a sense, although he goes wherever he wants to, in a sense, he can't go home, right? And where they'd like to go, right? Because they won't let him. Well, in a sense, he's a political prisoner, but what does he do? He goes out and about all over the world, and he brings joy and love and truth to people. We had the chance back in 2013 to see him. He was in Eugene, and he came there. We got tickets and we went, and I have to tell you, it was just the most incredible situation I'd ever been in. I mean, everybody, it was all of these diverse people there. That was just incredible listening to this man. And it was just life-changing to be there, to realize that this man who's had to endure things, and other people like him who have had to endure things, their spirit remains high. And that's I guess what I'm trying to say here. The benefit of the hanged man is, irrespective of what's happening to you, you can get above it all. You can see it from the standpoint of spirit, and it helps, right? You realize that no matter what's happening here in form, spirit is safe. And these are just the challenges that we are here to discover and to learn about and to work through and to understand. Even if the outcome doesn't go in our favor, that understanding of that whole awful situation, it is to your advantage, because especially, because if you don't understand it, then how do you figure out your way out of it, or to prevent it from happening again, right? But all of this, understanding the true nature of what's going on, aligning in spirit, then gives your mind a chance to rest. And you don't have to worry so much about over what the outcome is going to be, as much as you can just simply observe it and find the meaning within it. So think about that. Again, this is aligning with this week's esoteric influences. Go over there and read that if you haven't. And you'll just see that there just seems to be just this running theme of seeing the lower vibrational energies for what they are. They're very self-dealing. They don't care about the greater good or the greater consciousness. And that just seems to be what's going on this week. And I think also with this reading. So I expect Thursday's reading will have something to do with this, but we'll see. Maybe we'll turn a corner and go in a different direction on Thursday. So come back and check it out and see where we are, and be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.